And lastly, it says, this was the Calvinistic system precisely. The preachers were not to hold office in itself, but they were to be the rulers of all who did. So in the colonies, they might not have been the politicians, but all the politicians went to them to get their, policy signed off on. It says this was to make the preacher supreme. They were consulted in everything, and everything must be subject to their dictation.
That's not very different than Catholicism.
Exactly. It's literally the exact same thing. So whether you call it Catholicism, whether you call it Christian nationalism, the principle is the same.
Is that why it's like an image of?
Exactly.
Cultures don't change overnight.
Yes.
And so, I've had this conversation with our friend Alex Castillos. He's from Mexico, and I've been to a lot of Spanish-speaking congregations. When you go as a speaker, you'll notice you go in, it doesn't matter what your background is. If you're the one speaking, you're pastor.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the way it is. You're pastor, huge amount of respect, right? From the get-go, and they don't know you from Adam. And I've talked to him about that, and I was asking him, why is that? And it really lined up with something I was thinking. And he's like, well, most of these people, their cultural heritage, as far as religiously, goes back to Catholicism.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the way it was. You have a village, the whole village, the main guy is the priest. Everything revolves around the priest. What the priest tells them to do, what happens, right? And so you notice how that carries over even when they become Protestants. It's like a whole church really revolves around a pastor. You don't have a pastor in place. It's like the whole place is in chaos. It's like they don't know what to do. Yeah. And it's not to say that, I'm not to fault them for that or anything. It's just an observation. Like the pastor seems to be the glue to that congregation.
Yeah.
And it's really like, kind of like when you just observe people, it's kind of like whatever he says, that's what happens.
That's what goes. Yeah, that's a very, very good point.
And it's not that there's anything nefarious going on or anything evil or anything like that. It's just like, it's the cultural mindset. Like it just has continued to carry over, where people from other cultures, they tend to maybe be more, for lack of a better word, rebellious. They're like, pastor told me to do what? I'm not doing that. There's less, I guess, levels of respect for a position and other things that play in.
That's a very good point. And, what's really helped me, even as, I've grown and just an understanding, just getting older, when you really just take time to understand why people think the way they do, why, they make decisions like that, and understanding a lot of this history, and even to the point that you mentioned, it really allows you to have more empathy, more sympathy, because even as we talk about this, a lot of the people who agree with Christian nationalism, many of them are not doing this because they hate people.
Right.
They're not doing, a lot of them are not doing this because they're intentionally trying to serve the devil and, forward his agenda, but because of the influences that have, affected how they think and operate, they've been led to these conclusions. And that's why forums like this are so important to help re-educate.
They're doing what they think is right.
Exactly.